I'm Laura, and I'm 32 years old. My husband adjusted his Tom Ford tie in the mirror and told me not to wait up, heading to his company's annual gala that I had no business attending. An hour later, his secretary posted a photo online, and there in the background was Daniel with his arms wrapped around his ex-girlfriend like I didn't exist. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt that cold shock of betrayal hit you right in the chest. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. I stared at that photo for exactly 3 minutes in our minimalist living room, with its pretentious floor-to-ceiling windows. The ice in my whiskey melted completely. My hands weren't shaking, which surprised me. I'd always imagined discovering your husband's infidelity would feel more dramatic. Instead, I felt oddly calm, like a switch had flipped from wife to attorney. Turns out, 7 years of law school and corporate litigation teaches you to compartmentalize pretty effectively. The photo looked innocent at first glance. His secretary, Michelle, had captioned it, "Amazing night with the team." But past the foreground of champagne-wielding employees, you could see Daniel near the bar with Vanessa Cole. His hand rested on her lower back, her head tilted toward his shoulder. They looked comfortable, natural, like a couple who'd been together for years, which, plot twist, they apparently had been. Vanessa, the ex from college he'd dated for 3 years before we met. The woman who was now conveniently director of marketing at his company. The woman he'd hired 2 years ago despite my concerns. Assuring me I was being paranoid. Spoiler alert, I wasn't. I opened our text thread. His last message, "Boring speeches, wish you were here." I actually laughed. The audacity. Then I did what any self-respecting corporate attorney married to a potential criminal would do. I opened my laptop and accessed the company's shared drive. As the attorney who'd structured most of Grant Industries' major contracts and compliance systems, I had administrative credentials Daniel had granted me years ago. He'd joked that having his wife as the company lawyer was brilliant. "Keeps everything in the family," he'd say. Tonight, that decision was about to become his biggest regret. I started pulling files, financial reports, expense accounts, vendor contracts. Years of legal training had taught me that people who cheat in their personal lives often cut corners professionally too. It's about character, or the spectacular lack of it. 2 hours later, I found the first red flag. A contract with a vendor I didn't recognize, dated 6 months ago. The payment terms were unusual, very unusual. I cross-referenced it with approved vendor lists. Nothing. This company didn't exist in our systems, yet they'd been paid over $200,000 in consulting fees. I pulled up more files. Another phantom vendor, another questionable contract. The pattern became crystal clear. Daniel had been siphoning money through fake contracts for at least 18 months, possibly longer. I sat back, processing this. My husband wasn't just a cheater. He was a thief. And not a particularly smart one, apparently. The evidence sat in company files like a gift-wrapped prosecution. He'd been so confident nobody would look too closely that he hadn't bothered covering his tracks. A bitter smile crossed my face. Daniel had always underestimated me. When we met, I was a junior associate working 80-hour weeks. He was an entrepreneur with big dreams and limited capital. My father, Robert Anderson, had been intrigued by Daniel's pitch and invested $2 million of seed money. That investment had grown substantially, making Dad the largest outside shareholder. Daniel loved telling people he'd built his success from nothing. He conveniently forgot that nothing included my father's millions and my legal expertise, provided free for 2 years. I checked my watch. Almost midnight. The gala would be ending soon. Daniel would come home smelling like Vanessa's perfume and feed me lies about networking. He'd kiss my forehead and fall asleep next to me like he hadn't just spent the evening stealing from his own company while cheating on his wife. Not tonight. I scrolled to my father's contact. My finger hovered over the call button. Once I made this call, there was no going back. This wasn't just confronting a cheating husband. This was exposing financial fraud that would destroy Daniel's reputation and possibly land him in prison. Did I feel guilty? I searched for that emotion like checking boxes on a legal brief. No. What I felt was clarity. For too long, I'd played the supportive wife who didn't ask questions when he came home late or took mysterious calls. I'd ignored red flags because I wanted to believe in us. But that life was built on lies. And lies, like embezzlement schemes, eventually collapse. I pressed call. Dad answered on the second ring, voice alert despite the hour. "Laura, everything okay? Dad, we need to talk about Daniel. I need you to call an emergency board meeting." My voice was steady, cold, absolutely certain. Pause. Then, "I'll be right over." I opened a new folder on my laptop. Evidence. Then I started compiling every fraudulent transaction, every suspicious contract, every piece of documentation that would bury my husband. The funny thing about betrayal? It clarifies things wonderfully. All those times I'd questioned myself, wondered if I was being paranoid or insecure, suddenly made perfect sense. My instincts had been screaming the truth. I'd just been too invested in the fairy tale to listen. By the time Daniel's key turned in the lock 3 hours later, I'd documented over $1 million in theft, contacted my father, and mentally filed for divorce. I was in bed, lights off, perfectly still. He stumbled into the bedroom, definitely drunk, reeking of expensive perfume that wasn't mine. He thought I was asleep. Good. Love you, he mumbled, collapsing onto his side of the bed. I didn't respond. I was too busy calculating exactly how many federal crimes he'd committed and how long the prison sentence might be. Morning couldn't come fast enough. Let me take you back to how this mess started, because hindsight is both 20/20 and absolutely infuriating. We met 7 years ago at a legal aid charity gala. I was 25, fresh from law school, working insane hours at Patterson and Associates. The gala wasn't my scene. I was standing awkwardly by the bar, counting minutes until I could escape, when Daniel approached with that smile that should have come with a warning label. "You look about as excited to be here as I am," he'd said. Navy suit, perfect confidence, the kind of charm that makes smart women make stupid decisions. Daniel Grant. And yes, I know complaining at a charity event makes me terrible. I'd laughed despite myself. Laura Anderson, equally terrible apparently. We talked for 2 hours. Daniel was smart, ambitious, passionate about building a tech company focused on sustainable supply chains. Looking back, I'm not sure I understood half of what he was selling, but I understood his drive, his vision, and the way he looked at me like I was the most fascinating person in the room. Classic manipulation tactic, by the way. I just didn't know it then. He asked for my number. I gave it without hesitation, because apparently my law degree didn't come with common sense. Our first date was dinner at a small Italian place in Lincoln Park. Daniel talked about changing industries and making an impact. I talked about my cases, the challenges of being a young attorney in a male-dominated field. He asked thoughtful questions and remembered details I'd mentioned in passing. Red flag I missed. He talked about himself 80% of the time, but when someone's charming, you don't notice the ratio. 3 months in, Daniel met my father. Dad had always been protective, especially after Mom passed when I was in college. He'd raised me to be independent and skeptical, to trust actions over words. So when Daniel showed up with flowers and carefully researched wine, I could tell Dad was evaluating him like a potential investment, which, ironically, he was. They disappeared into Dad's study after dinner. I waited nervously, wondering what they were discussing. When they emerged an hour later, both men were smiling. "Your young man has interesting ideas," Dad said later, after Daniel left. "Very interesting." 2 weeks after that dinner, my father invested $2 million in Grant Industries. Daniel was ecstatic. "This changes everything. Your father believes in me, Laura. In me." I should have paid attention to that phrasing. In me, not in us. We got engaged a year later. Daniel proposed in Napa Valley with his grandmother's ring. The wedding was perfect, exactly what I'd wanted. Dad walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes, and Daniel's vows were everything I'd dreamed of hearing. All lies, as it turned out, but beautifully delivered lies. The first year of marriage was good. We were both ambitious, both driven, both working constantly. We understood each other's dedication to career. Or so I thought. Year 2, things shifted. Daniel became secretive about work, defensive when I asked questions. He'd come home late smelling like expensive restaurants and expensive perfume that wasn't mine. "You don't trust me?" He'd snap, expertly flipping the script. "I'm building something for our future, and you're interrogating me like a criminal?" And I'd back down feeling guilty. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt reality itself. Then came Vanessa Cole. Daniel mentioned it casually over breakfast. Bringing on a new director of marketing, someone from college with major firm experience. She'll be perfect for expansion. My gut twisted. Someone from college. Who? Vanessa Cole. I've mentioned her before. So casual, like it was nothing, but I'd heard him mention her multiple times. His college girlfriend, the one he'd called ambitious and driven. The same words he used for me. Apparently that was his type. "Your ex-girlfriend," I said flatly. Daniel sighed with elaborate patience. "An ex from 7 years ago, Laura. We're adults. We can work professionally without it being weird. Unless you're going to make it weird?" There it was. The implication that I was the problem, that my concerns were irrational. Have you ever experienced someone making you doubt your own judgment? Comment below if you have. I didn't push back. I told myself I was being mature, professional. After all, I worked with ex-boyfriends from law school. Why should his situation be different? Vanessa started 3 months later. I met her at the company barbecue. She was beautiful, polished, effortlessly confident. She greeted me warmly, professionally. "Laura, Daniel says you're a brilliant attorney." I smiled, trying to read her intentions. "And I hear you're taking our marketing to the next level." We made polite conversation that revealed nothing real, but I noticed how she and Daniel interacted. An ease born from shared history. Inside jokes I didn't understand. References to college memories that excluded me. I told myself it was nothing. I was being paranoid. Insecure. Exactly what Daniel accused me of being. But tonight, staring at that photograph, I realized my instincts had been screaming the truth all along. My only mistake was not trusting them sooner. Now it was time to correct that mistake. Spectacularly. The next morning, I woke before Daniel. Dad had left around 3 a.m. after we'd spent hours reviewing evidence. His disappointment in Daniel was palpable. "I trusted him," Dad had said quietly. "I invested because of you, because I thought he was honest, because I thought he loved you. He loved what I could give him," I'd replied. My father's money, my legal expertise, my credibility, me, that was optional. Now watching Daniel sleep peacefully, I studied his face. How many nights had he come home from Vanessa and slept soundly? How many times had he kissed me while planning to leave me? My phone buzzed. "Dad, board meeting Monday, 10 a.m. Major investors coming, keep playing along." I deleted the message and slipped into the shower, mentally preparing for the performance ahead. For 48 hours, I needed to be the wife Daniel expected. Supportive, trusting, oblivious. Piece of cake. I'd been doing it for months already. When I emerged, Daniel was awake, scrolling his phone. He smiled. "Morning, beautiful. Sorry about getting in late. Gala ran longer than expected." "How was it?" I asked, keeping my tone light as I moved to the closet. "Boring, mostly. Standard corporate stuff. Too much champagne." He stretched, yawning. "Glad you didn't have to sit through it." The lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly. I wondered if he'd practiced it, or if dishonesty just came naturally now. "That's too bad," I said, selecting clothes. I was looking at Michelle's photos. Looked like everyone was having fun. I watched his reaction in the mirror. Brief flicker of concern, then practiced nonchalance. Photos always make things look better than they are. He moved toward me, hands on my waist. I forced myself not to pull away. "Missed you, though. Would have been more fun with you there." I turned, looking up at him with manufactured affection. "Maybe next year?" "Definitely." He kissed my forehead, the gesture feeling like a lie pressed against my skin. After Daniel left, I opened my laptop. I'd taken the day off work, claiming a migraine, giving me freedom to dig deeper into Grant Industries' files without interruption. The fake contracts were obvious fraud, but I suspected more. Men entitled enough to steal from their own company rarely stop at one scheme. I examined expense reports, travel reimbursements, vendor relationships. 3 hours later, I'd found a pattern of inflated invoices from various suppliers. Nothing individually large enough to trigger audits, but together they amounted to significant theft. Smart enough to avoid casual detection, not smart enough to fool someone who knew what to look for. And people say law school is boring. This was better than any crime show. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Laura Anderson?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Speaking? My name is Jennifer Park. I'm an accountant at Grant Industries." Pause. "I found your office number in the company directory. I know this is unusual, but we need to talk about financial discrepancies I've discovered." My pulse quickened. "I'm listening. I've been trying to bring these concerns to Mr. Grant's attention for months. He keeps dismissing them, telling me to stop questioning his business decisions. He threatened my job if I raised the issue again." Her voice shook slightly. "Then I heard through the office that your father is the largest investor. I thought maybe you'd actually listen." For the next hour, Jennifer detailed anomalies she'd discovered during quarterly reviews. Expenses that didn't match receipts, vendor payments exceeding contracts, travel costs that seemed excessive. She'd compiled documentation, but without authority to investigate. She'd been stymied. "Why contact me now?" I asked. "Because Mr. Grant is the CEO, and I'm a mid-level accountant. Who would the board believe? But you're different. You're married to him, you're the corporate attorney, and your father is the largest investor. You have credibility. If something's really wrong, you have power to do something." She had no idea how right she was. "Send me everything you have," I told her. "And Jennifer, keep this completely confidential. Don't mention it to anyone, especially Daniel." "Understood." After we hung up, I stared at my laptop. An inside witness with independent documentation. This was exactly what I needed to make the case bulletproof. My phone buzzed. "Daniel, dinner tonight? I'll cook." I typed back, "Sounds perfect. Love you." The words felt like ash, but I hit send anyway. Just 2 more days of pretending. That evening, Daniel made seafood pasta and we ate like a normal couple. He talked about work, expansion plans, a big client meeting next week. I smiled, nodded, asked appropriate questions, playing my role perfectly while mentally cataloging every lie. "You seem distracted," he observed, refilling my wine. "Everything okay?" "Difficult case at work, clients being unreasonable." Lies came easier than I expected. He launched into negotiation advice, completely oblivious to the irony, teaching me about professional integrity while simultaneously embezzling and cheating. After dinner, we watched a movie. His arm around my shoulders, my head against his chest. To any observer, we looked perfect, happy, secure, in love. But I was counting hours until Monday, when everything Daniel built on lies would collapse. And honestly, I couldn't wait. Sunday morning arrived unseasonably warm. Daniel suggested brunch at our favorite spot in River North. I agreed, maintaining the facade. We walked hand in hand down Michigan Avenue, and I wondered if this would be our last time. Probably. Almost certainly. Not that I'd miss it. At brunch, we ran into Marcus Thompson, the CFO, a pleasant man in his 50s who'd been with Daniel since the early days. "You missed quite the party, Laura," Marcus said warmly. "Best event yet." I smiled. "So I heard." Daniel said the speeches were boring, though. Marcus laughed. "That's because he had to give one. But the after-party was fun. Great music, dancing. Vanessa really outdid herself with planning." Daniel's posture shifted beside me. Subtle tension. "Vanessa planned it?" I asked innocently. "She volunteered to take point this year. Real talent for events." Marcus turned to Daniel. "You two were certainly tearing up the dance floor. Made the rest of us look like amateurs." The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds but felt eternal. Daniel recovered quickly, laughing. "Marcus is exaggerating. I'm terrible at dancing, as Laura knows." "Not from what I saw," Marcus continued cheerfully, oblivious to the bomb he'd dropped. "You and Vanessa had serious moves. My wife was impressed." I kept my expression neutral, reaching for water to hide the tremor in my hands. Dancing. They'd been dancing together, close enough to be memorable. We left shortly after, citing errands. The walk to our car was tense. Daniel was quiet, formulating explanations. "So," I said conversationally as we got in, "you and Vanessa were dancing?" He gripped the wheel. "Laura, it was just dancing. At a company party. It didn't mean anything. You told me the gala was boring, that you were glad I wasn't there." I kept my voice level. "Doesn't sound like someone having fun dancing." I was being polite. It's my company. I can't stand in a corner all night. Defensiveness showing now. "What do you want me to say? That I should have refused to dance with my director of marketing? That would have looked weird." "You know what looks weird?" I countered. "Lying to your wife about how much fun you had, conveniently forgetting to mention you spent the evening dancing with your ex-girlfriend." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I didn't forget. I just didn't think it was important." "You're being paranoid again, Laura. Just like when I hired her." There it was. The gaslighting playbook. Make me the problem. "Am I?" I asked softly. "Because it looks like you've been lying for a while now. I'm starting to wonder what else you're lying about." He pulled into our garage, turned off the engine, twisted to face me, expression mixing frustration, and something that might have been guilt. "I'm not lying about anything. Vanessa and I are colleagues. That's it. Yes, we have history, but that's exactly what it is. History. I love you, Laura. I married you. Why can't you trust that?" I looked into his eyes, searching for truth, finding only practiced sincerity. This man had become a stranger, or maybe he always was one. "I want to believe you," I said. Part of me desperately wanted to believe I was wrong, that our marriage could be saved, but evidence said otherwise. Daniel reached for my hand. "Then believe me. Please. I know I should have been more transparent. I screwed up, but I'm not cheating on you. I would never." Another lie, delivered with perfect conviction. I squeezed his hand, nodded. "Okay." Relief flooded his face. "Okay? Okay. I trust you." The lie tasted bitter, but I delivered it convincingly. Daniel pulled me into a hug, and I let myself be held, knowing it would likely be the last time. That afternoon, while Daniel watched football, I locked myself in his office and opened the safe behind a painting. I knew the combination. He'd given it to me years ago, trusting me. Inside, marriage certificate, property deeds, insurance policies, but also something unexpected, a velvet jewelry box. My heart sinking, I opened it. A diamond bracelet. Expensive, delicate, beautiful, the kind a man buys for someone he loves. I checked the receipt beneath it. Purchased 3 weeks ago, $5,000. I'd never seen this bracelet. I photographed the receipt and bracelet, replaced everything exactly as found. My hands were steady, mind clear. Any lingering doubt had evaporated. I sent an encrypted email to Jennifer Park. Need copies of everything by tomorrow morning. Complete confidentiality essential. Her reply came within minutes. Already compiled. Sending tonight. I texted Dad. Need to meet tomorrow before the board session. Something else you should know. His response, my office, 8 a.m. That night, Daniel initiated intimacy. Every fiber of my being wanted to push him away, but I didn't. I let him make love to me one last time, performing my role while mentally cataloging every lie, every betrayal. Afterward, as he fell asleep, I lay awake thinking about the bracelet. Vanessa would wear it soon, probably. Maybe after the divorce. A gift celebrating their freedom. Except that wasn't happening. Because by tomorrow, Daniel's world would be ruins. And Vanessa would learn exactly what kind of man she'd been sleeping with. I smiled in the darkness. Just a few more hours. Monday morning arrived crisp and bright. I dressed carefully in a navy suit, professional armor for battle ahead. Daniel was sleeping when I left at 7:30, heading to Dad's office downtown. Anderson Capital Management occupied the entire 42nd floor. I'd grown up visiting, learning about business in these conference rooms. Now I was bringing evidence that would destroy Dad's biggest investment and end my marriage. He was waiting, coffee brewing. Dad looked tired, older than his 62 years. This was taking a toll on him too. Morning, sweetheart, he said, pulling me into a hug. Holding up okay? Better than expected. Running on adrenaline at this point. I accepted coffee gratefully. We settled into leather chairs by his window. From here, you could see Grant Industries building 6 blocks away. Daniel was probably arriving now, completely unaware his world was about to implode. You said there was something else, Dad prompted. I showed him the bracelet photo and receipt. His expression darkened. $5,000, he said quietly, while telling you to cut household expenses because cash flow was tight. True. Daniel had suggested we eliminate our cleaning service and subscriptions. Growth phase, he'd explained. Need to be smart about personal spending, all while buying jewelry for his mistress and embezzling from the company. There's more. I showed him Jennifer Park's additional documentation. Expense reports showing Daniel charging personal luxuries to the company. Hotel stays at high-end resorts not aligned with business travel. Receipts from jewelry stores, designer boutiques, expensive restaurants. All categorized as business development. Dad reviewed documents with careful attention. Someone who'd built his fortune on details. When finished, he exhaled slowly. He's been stealing from me, from all investors, using company funds to finance his affair. For at least 18 months, maybe longer. Dad checked his watch. Board meeting starts in an hour. Other major investors are flying in. I haven't told them full scope. Just serious financial irregularities requiring immediate attention. They won't be happy. Neither is Daniel. He has no idea this is coming. Good. Dad's expression was grim. Men like him need to be caught off guard. Prevents them constructing defenses or destroying evidence. We spent the next 45 minutes reviewing strategy. Dad would chair the meeting, present initial concerns. I would detail legal violations, present evidence. Jennifer Park would be on standby via video to answer questions. At 9:30, we walked to the conference room. Other investors were already there. Michael Chen, early investor alongside Dad. Patricia Williams, whose venture capital firm backed Series B funding. Robert Kowalski, representing a private equity group. They greeted me warmly. These people had known me since graduation, toasted my wedding. Now I was telling them they'd been defrauded by the man they'd trusted with their capital. Where's Daniel? Patricia asked, checking her phone. He'll join shortly, Dad said smoothly. But there are things we need to discuss first. At precisely 10, Dad called the meeting to order. He'd just begun outlining the emergency session's purpose when the door opened. Daniel walked in, confused, scanning the room, taking in the unusual investor assembly. His eyes landed on me, and I saw the moment he understood something was very wrong. Robert, he said, addressing Dad with forced casualness. I got your message about an emergency meeting, but wasn't clear on the agenda. What's this about? Sit down. Daniel, Dad said coldly. You'll want to be sitting. Daniel hesitated, then took the empty chair across from me. Our eyes met. I held his gaze steadily. No more pretending. He needed to see that I knew everything. As I was explaining, Dad continued, serious financial irregularities have come to light regarding Grant Industries' operations. Irregularities suggesting systematic fraud and embezzlement. Color drained from Daniel's face. That's impossible. Our books are clean. We just passed annual audit. Your books appear clean on surface, I said, speaking for the first time. Professional, steady. but detailed examination reveals fraudulent vendor contracts, inflated expense reports, and misappropriation of company funds, all of which I'm prepared to document comprehensively. Daniel stared like he'd never seen me before. Laura, what are you doing? My job. As corporate attorney for Grant Industries, it's my responsibility to report financial crimes to the board. That's exactly what I'm doing. I opened my laptop, projected the first document. A fake vendor contract, Daniel's signature prominently displayed. This contract, dated 8 months ago, is with Strategic Solutions Group. According to this, they were paid $200,000 for market analysis. Problem is, Strategic Solutions doesn't exist. It's a shell company registered to a Delaware P.O. box. Payment wired to an account tracing back to Daniel Grant. The room erupted. Patricia Williams leaned forward, studying the document. Daniel, is this true? What do you think will happen next? Drop your predictions in the comments below. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it. I could see his mind racing, trying to formulate some explanation making this look like misunderstanding rather than deliberate theft. But there was no innocent explanation, and we both knew it. Laura, he tried again, voice pleading. This is taken out of context. Let me explain. By all means, Dad said coldly. Explain how you've been embezzling from your company, from your investors, from me. I haven't been embezzling. Those payments were legitimate business expenses. Sometimes we need creative accounting for competitive reasons. Creative accounting? Michael Chen repeated, voice sharp with disbelief. That's what you're calling fraud? I projected another document. This is an expense report from 6 months ago. $5,000 for business dinner in New York. But when I cross-referenced your travel schedule, you weren't in New York that date. You were in Miami, at the Fontainebleau. Suite costing $3,000 a night for 3 nights. I pulled up the hotel reservation, showing 2 guests. Care to explain who accompanied you on this non-business trip charged to the company? Daniel's face went from pale to red, anger replacing shock. You've been spying on me? I've been doing my job. Reviewing company expenditures for compliance. Due diligence, Daniel. You should try it. Patricia Williams stood. How much are we talking? Total. Based on documentation from the past 2 years, I said, pulling up my comprehensive spreadsheet. Approximately $2.8 million in fraudulent expenses and fake vendor payments. Though I suspect it goes back further with full forensic audit. The number hung like a physical weight. $2.8 million. Stolen from investors who'd believed in Daniel, trusted him to build something legitimate. Robert Kowalski, silent until now, spoke quietly but deadly. I want full forensic audit. Today. And Daniel Grant suspended from all operational duties immediately pending investigation. Seconded, Patricia said. Wait, Daniel said desperately. This is premature. Laura's obviously upset about something, taking it out on me professionally. This is personal, not business. I almost admired the attempt, discrediting me by suggesting I was an emotional woman mixing personal grievances with professional concerns. Classic manipulation. Dad's expression turned arctic. Interesting theory. Would you like to explain what personal issues Laura might be upset about? Perhaps something related to Friday's gala? Daniel's eyes widened. He hadn't expected Dad to be this informed, this involved. While we're discussing personal matters mixing with business, I said, voice cutting through tension, should we talk about Vanessa Cole's employment? Your ex-girlfriend you hired 2 years ago? The same woman you were photographed intimately with Friday at the company event? I projected Michelle's Instagram photo. There it was, clear as day. Daniel and Vanessa at the bar, his hand on her back, her head tilted toward him. Body language of 2 people very familiar with each other. That proves nothing, Daniel said, lacking conviction. We were at a company party. You're right. By itself, it proves nothing except poor judgment. But combined with hotel stays, expensive gifts charged to company accounts, and witness statements from employees who've observed your relationship, it paints a comprehensive picture. I projected the jewelry receipt, $5,000 bracelet. This was purchased 3 weeks ago using company credit card, categorized as client gift. I'm curious which client received a diamond bracelet from Cartier. Care to enlighten us? Dead silence. Every investor stared, waiting for explanation that wouldn't come, because there was no explanation making this okay. Jennifer Park appeared on video screen. Sorry to interrupt, but I've been listening and I feel compelled to add that I brought these concerns to Mr. Grant 3 months ago. He dismissed them, told me to stop questioning his decisions, said if I raised the issue again, I'd be terminated. Daniel's head snapped toward the screen. Jennifer, what are you doing? The right thing. Finally. Dad stood, gesture commanding immediate attention. Daniel Grant. Effective immediately. You're suspended from all operational duties at Grant Industries. Surrender your access cards, keys, and company devices. Forensic audit begins today. Depending on findings, criminal charges may be filed. You can't do this, Daniel said, standing abruptly. This is my company. I built this. You built it with our money, Patricia Williams corrected icily. Money you've been stealing. So yes, we absolutely can do this. Laura, Daniel turned desperately. Please. You're my wife. You can't let them do this. I met his gaze calmly. Actually, there's something else we need to discuss. About our marriage. His eyes narrowed. What about it? I pulled out a folder containing our prenuptial agreement. We'd signed it before the wedding at Dad's insistence. Daniel had complained it showed lack of trust, but signed anyway, eager to secure the relationship with Dad's investment. Section 7, Clause 3, I read aloud. In event of dissolution due to proven infidelity combined with financial fraud or criminal activity, the unfaithful party forfeits all claim to marital assets. My father's attorneys insisted on this specifically to protect his investment. Combined with your criminal charges, the prenup becomes virtually uncontestable. I looked up at Daniel's stricken face. You remember signing this? That would never hold up, he said, voice wavering. Actually, it's quite enforceable. You haven't just been unfaithful. You've been stealing from the people whose money built this company, including my father, whose initial investment gave you capital to start Grant Industries. The implications were sinking in. Daniel wasn't just losing his position. He was losing everything. Business, reputation, marriage, all built on lies. You planned this, he said, looking at me with something like awe mixed with hatred. All of it. You knew before I got home Friday. I saw the photo. Then I started looking carefully at things I'd been ignoring too long. Turns out, when you actually pay attention, evidence of someone's character is everywhere. Michael Chen cleared his throat. I move we appoint interim CEO while this is resolved. I nominate Robert Anderson. Seconded, Patricia said. Dad shook his head. I appreciate the nomination, but I'd like to suggest someone else. Someone who knows this company intimately, has legal expertise to navigate coming challenges, and has proven her integrity beyond question. He looked at me. I nominate Laura Anderson Grant. I stared, genuinely surprised. Dad, I'm not sure that's appropriate given circumstances. Actually, Robert Kowalski said thoughtfully, it makes perfect sense. You uncovered the fraud. You know the legal landscape. And you have every incentive to ensure this company survives and thrives. Other board members nodded agreement. Daniel watched this with utter disbelief. All in favor? Dad asked. Aye, came the chorus. Then it's settled. Laura, you're acting CEO effective immediately. Daniel, security will escort you from the building. You'll hear from our attorneys regarding both criminal investigation and divorce proceedings. 2 security guards appeared. Summoned during the meeting, Daniel looked at them, at me, at assembled investors who'd just stripped him of everything he'd built his identity around. I never meant to hurt you, he said quietly, just to me. I considered that. Maybe it was even true in his twisted logic. Maybe he genuinely believed he could have everything without consequences. But you did hurt me. You lied, stole from my family, and humiliated me publicly. Whether you meant to doesn't change what you did. It just means you didn't think I was worth the effort of honesty. Daniel opened his mouth, but security interrupted. Sir, we need you to come with us. I watched my husband escorted out of the conference room, out of the company he'd founded, out of the life he'd taken for granted. The door closed with definitive click. Dad put his hand on my shoulder. You okay? I took a breath, processing everything. In 72 hours, I'd gone from corporate attorney to CEO, devoted wife to woman filing for divorce, trusting partner to whistleblower. Yeah, I said, surprising myself with the truth. I think I actually am. Patricia Williams stood, extended her hand. Welcome to the hot seat, Laura. Your first order of business should be terminating Vanessa Cole's employment. I shook her hand, allowing myself a small smile. Actually, I think I'll handle that conversation personally. Today, there was work to do. Company to stabilize, fraud investigation to support, divorce to finalize. But for the first time in years, I felt completely, powerfully in control of my own life. And honestly, that felt absolutely incredible. After the board meeting, I had exactly 15 minutes before my scheduled conversation with Vanessa Cole. 15 minutes to transition from devastated wife to commanding CEO. I stood in what was now my office, Daniel's former domain, taking in the space with new eyes. Mahogany desk, downtown Chicago view, framed photos of company milestones. Everything built with stolen money and broken promises. By tonight, these would be gone, boxed up for whatever sad apartment Daniel would occupy. But first, business. Rebecca, my assistant who'd been with the company since the beginning, knocked softly. Ms. Cole is here. She seems confused about why you requested to see her. Send her in. Vanessa entered with the confidence of someone who believed she was untouchable. Cream designer suit, dark hair in sleek ponytail, polished, professional, completely unaware her world was about to implode. Laura, she said, surprise flickering. I was expecting Daniel. Rebecca said this was urgent? Sit down, Vanessa. I gestured to the chair. She sat, posture perfect, expression shifting to concern. Is everything okay? Daniel hasn't been answering his phone? No, everything is not okay. Let me catch you up. Daniel was suspended from all duties pending criminal investigation into embezzlement and fraud. I've been appointed acting CEO by the board, and you, Vanessa, are fired. Color drained from her face. What? You can't just fire me. I'm director of marketing. I report to Daniel. You reported to Daniel. Now you report to me. I'm terminating your employment effective immediately for violation of company ethics policies, which our HR director has thoroughly documented. She stood abruptly. This is insane. You're doing this because you're jealous. Everyone knows you've always been threatened by me. I smiled, and I could tell by her reaction it wasn't pleasant. Threatened? By you? Vanessa, I'm a Harvard-educated attorney who just became CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. You're unemployed. Why exactly would I be threatened? What do you think will happen next? Share your predictions in comments and don't forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying Laura's journey. You're jealous because Daniel and I are together, she continued, voice rising. Because he chose me. He didn't choose you. He used you. Just like he used me. Used my father's money. Used every person who trusted him. Now that he's facing criminal charges with no money, no company, no future, let's see how long you stick around. I pulled up a document, turned the screen toward her. This is the forensic audit summary. Past 2 years alone, Daniel embezzled $2.8 million. He's not just losing his job, he's going to prison. So if you were hoping to ride off into the sunset with your college sweetheart, I'd suggest adjusting expectations. Her hands shook. I didn't know about any of that. I wasn't involved, maybe not in embezzlement. But you were certainly involved in the affair. Hotel stays charged to company accounts, expensive gifts, complete lack of professional boundaries at company events. All violations of our ethics code, which, by the way, HR has been documenting for months because apparently everyone noticed except me. I stood, walked around the desk, enjoying how she had to look up. Here's what happens. You sign a severance agreement including non-disclosure. You will not contact Daniel, speak to press, or disparage this company. In return, I won't pursue legal action for your role in defrauding company resources. And if I refuse, then I make sure every company in Chicago knows exactly what kind of employee you are. Someone who sleeps with married executives and helps them steal from investors. I paused. Your career in this city would be over. Your choice. Vanessa stared for a long moment, calculating, weighing options. Finally, she reached for the pen I offered. You're not as nice as everyone thought, she said bitterly, signing. No, I'm better. I'm effective. And unlike Daniel, I actually earned my position instead of stealing it. Security escorted Vanessa out 10 minutes later. I watched from my window as she walked to her car, phone pressed to ear, probably calling Daniel. Good luck with that. His phone had been confiscated. Rebecca knocked again. You're 2 o'clock. Department heads want to meet. I took a breath. This was it. My first real act as CEO, meeting people who'd worked with Daniel for years and might not be thrilled about his sudden removal. The conference room was full. 12 department heads representing everything from technology to sales. They looked at me with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism to outright hostility. I stood at the table's head, addressed them directly. I know this morning came as a shock. Some of you are wondering what happens next. So let me be clear. Grant Industries will survive. We have strong fundamentals, good products, and most importantly, talented people like you who do actual work. Marcus Thompson, the CFO, spoke up. With all respect, Laura, you're an attorney, not an operator. How do you plan to run a tech company? By relying on experts like you. I'm not pretending I know more about technology than our CTO or more about sales than our VP. What I know is law, compliance, and corporate governance. Right now, that's exactly what this company needs. Plus, I'm smart enough to listen to people who know more than I do, which apparently makes me more qualified than the last guy. A woman I recognized as Donna Fraser, VP of Human Resources, raised her hand. Can I ask something uncomfortable? Please. Are you staying long-term as CEO, or is this temporary while the board searches? Fair question. Honestly, I don't know yet. My immediate focus is stabilizing the company and cooperating with criminal investigation. After that, we'll see. But whoever leads going forward, whether me or someone else, will value integrity and treat this business with respect it deserves. That's my promise. Jason Webb, head of product development, raised his hand. What about clients? They'll hear about Daniel's arrest. That could tank contracts, which is why we're getting ahead of it. I'm personally reaching out to top 10 clients today to assure continuity. We'll be transparent about leadership change while emphasizing fraud was isolated to one individual. Most importantly, we'll deliver on commitments. Actions speak louder. The meeting continued another hour. We discussed priorities, addressed concerns, mapped communication strategy. By the end, I sensed a shift, not unanimous support, but willingness to give me a chance. As people filed out, Donna Fraser approached privately. "Can I speak with you?" "Of course." She closed the door, expression serious. "I want to tell you something, but need you to understand I'm only sharing now because I think you'll actually listen." Daniel never would have. I sat, giving full attention. I'm listening. The culture here has been toxic for women. Not everywhere, not everyone, but enough that it's a problem. Daniel promoted based on who he liked. And he liked men who reminded him of himself. Women who pushed back against inappropriate comments found themselves sidelined. I've been documenting incidents for 2 years, hoping someone in leadership would care. My stomach tightened. How bad? Casual sexism in meetings, comments about appearance instead of performance, men taking credit for women's ideas, a few instances of serious harassment never properly investigated. She handed me a flash drive. It's all here. Dates, witnesses, everything. I took the drive, feeling its weight. Why didn't you go to the board? Because Daniel was the board's golden boy, and I'm an HR director who can be replaced. She met my eyes. But you're different. You're a woman who just took down the CEO and got his job. If anyone can actually change things, it might be you. I looked at that flash drive and realized this was bigger than Daniel's theft or my revenge. This was about dozens of women who'd been silenced, dismissed, told they were too sensitive. "I'll fix it," I said. Not a promise, a vow, starting tomorrow. The flash drive Donna gave me sat on my desk like a ticking bomb. I'd planned to spend the afternoon calling clients, but this demanded immediate attention. I plugged it in and started reading. 2 years of documented incidents. Dozens of complaints minimized, ignored, actively buried. Women told they were too sensitive or should learn to take a joke. Talented employees who'd left because of hostile environments. Daniel's name appeared repeatedly, not always as aggressor but consistently as someone who enabled behavior by failing to address it. He'd created a culture where certain men felt protected, where women learned to stay quiet. My phone buzzed. "Dad, how's your first day as CEO?" I typed back. "Just discovered our problems go deeper than embezzlement. Need to implement major cultural changes. This is harder than I thought." His response. "That's why you're the right person. Call me tonight." There was a knock. Rebecca poked her head in. "Daniel Grant is in the lobby, demanding to see you." I checked my watch. 4 hours since he'd been escorted out. Faster than expected. "Tell security to remove him. He's not authorized on company property. He says he's not leaving until you talk." I considered options. Forcibly remove him, causing a scene, or give him 5 minutes and make clear he had no power anymore. The second had appeal. Have security escort him to conference room B. I'll be there in 5. Conference room B was small, windowless, usually reserved for difficult client meetings. Appropriately grim for this conversation. When I entered, Daniel was pacing, tie loosened, hair disheveled. He looked like he hadn't slept, probably accurate. 2 security guards stood by the door. Reminder this wasn't social. "Laura, thank God," Daniel said, moving toward me. "This is insane. You have to tell the board this is a mistake." I remained near the door, maintaining distance. "It's not a mistake. You stole over $2.8 million. You cheated on me. You lied to everyone who trusted you. Those are facts, not mistakes. The money was for business investments. It's complicated accounting, but legitimate. I can explain if you'd listen. I am an attorney specializing in corporate law. I understand complicated accounting. What you did wasn't complicated. It was theft." He changed tactics, expression softening into something that might have fooled me a year ago. "Laura, you're my wife. We're supposed to be on the same team. How can you side with them against me? You stopped being on my team the moment you started sleeping with Vanessa. Probably before that. You've been using me and my family for years. I just finally noticed. I made mistakes," he admitted. "The thing with Vanessa was wrong, but I love you. We can work through this. You don't have to destroy my life." The audacity was almost impressive. "I'm not destroying your life. You did that yourself. I'm just ensuring you face consequences." Daniel's face hardened, mask slipping. "You realize you'll lose everything too? Your reputation? Career?" Everyone will know you couldn't keep your husband happy, couldn't satisfy him, so he went elsewhere. And there it was, the real Daniel, blaming everyone else for his failures. Actually, I said calmly, everyone will know I caught my husband embezzling from my family, exposed his crimes, and took his job. They'll know I had integrity to do the right thing even when it hurt. Which version makes me look bad? He opened his mouth, closed it. For once, no comeback. Our lawyers will touch base about the divorce. Given the prenup and documented infidelity and fraud, prepare for very unfavorable settlement. Oh, and Vanessa was fired this morning, in case you were hoping she'd comfort you. You fired her? Daniel's voice rose. She had nothing to do with this. She had everything to do with it, but honestly, I did her a favor. Now she'll discover what kind of man you really are before wasting more time. I turned to leave, done with this conversation. Wait, Daniel called. What am I supposed to do? The board froze my accounts. I don't even have access to our joint credit cards. I paused at the door. Sounds like a personal problem. Maybe you should have thought about that before committing multiple felonies. Have a nice life, Daniel. What's left of it anyway? Security escorted him out while I returned to my office. Hands shaking now, adrenaline catching up. I'd just confronted my husband, ended my marriage definitively, with witnesses. No going back. My phone rang. Unknown number. I debated not answering, then decided to deal with whatever crisis this was. Laura Anderson. Ms. Anderson, Detective Sarah Martinez with Chicago PD's Financial Crimes Division. We've been assigned to investigate allegations against Daniel Grant. Would you be available to give a statement? And so it began. Criminal investigation that would dominate news, drag out for months, ensure everyone knew what Daniel had done. Yes, Detective. When? By 6 p.m., I'd given a 2-hour statement to police, spoken with 3 major clients, and started drafting company-wide email about leadership transition. My head pounded. I hadn't eaten since breakfast. Rebecca knocked softly. I'm heading out, but wanted to check if you need anything. I'm fine, thank you. She hesitated. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. A lot of us have been hoping someone would stand up to Daniel. We just didn't think it would happen. After she left, I sat in the quiet office and let myself feel the weight. In 48 hours, my entire life had transformed. I was no longer Daniel Grant's wife. I was Laura Anderson, CEO, whistleblower, corporate crusader apparently. My phone buzzed with a text from unknown number. Hope you're happy. You've destroyed us both. This isn't over. Daniel, still not accepting responsibility, still making threats. I screenshot the message, forwarded it to my attorney and the detective. Harassment would only worsen his legal situation. Then I blocked his number and ordered Thai food. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, I was eating pad Thai in my office and planning the next phase of fixing this company. And you know what? That felt pretty damn good. 3 weeks after the board meeting, the forensic audit came back worse than anticipated. Embezzlement wasn't $2.8 million. It was closer to 3.5 when factoring earlier transactions the initial review missed. Daniel had been stealing since the company's 2nd year, long before Vanessa, long before our marriage started falling apart. He'd built his success on fraud from the beginning. Criminal charges were filed on a Wednesday. Wire fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, each count carrying significant prison time. My attorney called to inform me Daniel's legal team was trying to negotiate a plea deal. The prosecutors are interested, she said. They want to close a high-profile case and send a message about white-collar crime. With evidence this overwhelming, Daniel's lawyers are advising him a trial would result in much longer sentence. They're pushing for expedited process. How do you feel about that? She asked. Honestly, relieved. He needs to face real consequences. Media coverage was intense. Business publications ran stories about the Grant Industries scandal. My name appeared in every article. Some portrayed me as hero who'd blown the whistle. Others implied I was a scorned woman taking revenge. Both versions were partially true, which didn't make either less annoying. But I was too busy rebuilding to care much about public perception. The company needed stabilizing, and that meant addressing cultural issues Donna had documented. I called an all-hands meeting for Friday afternoon. Every employee packed into our largest conference room and overflow spaces watching via video. I stood at front, looking at faces ranging from curious to skeptical to hopeful. I know the past few weeks have been chaotic, I began. Leadership changes, criminal investigations, constant media attention. You've probably been wondering what happens next, whether your jobs are secure, whether this company has a future. I paused, making eye contact with different sections. I'm here to tell you Grant Industries does have a future, but it won't look exactly like our past. Because our past, frankly, had serious problems we need to address. Donna Fraser sat in front, watching with cautious optimism. I've learned this company had a culture that wasn't safe or welcoming for everyone, where some employees felt they had to tolerate inappropriate behavior to keep jobs, where talent was overlooked and voices were silenced. That ends now. I outline new initiatives. Mandatory harassment training for everyone, especially leadership. Anonymous reporting system bypassing direct managers. Promotion review emphasizing merit over personal relationships. External audit of HR practices and compensation to identify and correct systemic biases. These changes won't happen overnight. Cultural transformation takes time and commitment. But I'm committed, and I hope you'll hold me accountable to these promises. As people filed out, several women approached privately. They thanked me. They shared stories. They told me about ideas dismissed, promotions they should have received, daily microaggressions that made them question their worth. Sarah Chen from product development said something that stayed with me. I was planning to leave at year's end. Already had interviews lined up. But now I think I'll stay. Because for the first time, I feel like someone in leadership actually cares about fixing things. That afternoon, I promoted 3 women to senior positions inexplicably occupied by less qualified men. I also fired 2 managers who'd been subject of multiple harassment complaints Daniel had ignored. Message needed to be clear. Things were different now. Dad stopped by the office that evening. He'd been giving me space to establish my own leadership style, but I could tell he was proud. "You're doing something special," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Not just saving a company, but actually making it better." "I'm trying. Some days it feels like putting out fires with a water pistol." He laughed. "That's leadership. But you're making progress. The board is impressed. Several clients have told me they're more confident now than under Daniel." "Really?" That surprised me. "Really. Turns out people appreciate integrity." "Who knew?" He was quiet for a moment. "How are you doing? Personally?" "The divorce proceedings can't be easy." "The divorce." "Right." In chaos of running a company, I'd almost forgotten I was technically still married. My attorney was handling most of it. But Daniel's lawyers kept trying to argue he deserved share of marital assets despite the prenup. Exhausting. "I'm okay. Better than expected, actually. I thought I'd be devastated, mourning the marriage and future we'd planned. But mostly I just feel free." "That's healthy," Dad said. "Daniel didn't deserve you. Never did. You should have told me before I married him. Would you have listened?" "Fair point." At 27, I'd been so sure Daniel was right, so certain love and ambition were enough to build life on. I'd ignored red flags because I wanted the fairy tale. Now, at 32, I was learning sometimes the fairy tale is becoming your own hero instead of waiting for one to save you. And honestly, that was so much better. 2 months after the board meeting, I was reviewing quarterly projections when Rebecca buzzed. "You have a visitor. Vanessa Cole. No appointment, but says it's important." I almost said no. Vanessa and I had no unfinished business. But curiosity won. "Give me 5 minutes." Then send her in. When Vanessa entered, she looked different. Polished confidence gone, replaced by something resembling defeat. Off-the-rack suit instead of designer. Dark circles shadowing eyes. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, sitting when I gestured. "You have 10 minutes? What do you want?" I wanted to apologize. Said quickly, like she'd been rehearsing. For the affair, my part in what happened. I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed to say it. I studied her, trying to determine if this was genuine or another manipulation. "Why now?" "Because I understand what you went through now." Her voice cracked slightly. "Daniel and I were together after he left the company, about 6 weeks. He told me once everything's settled, once legal issues were resolved, we'd start fresh somewhere, build something together." "Let me guess," I said. "Once he realized he was actually going to prison and lose everything, the relationship fell apart?" She nodded miserably. "He kept asking for money. Legal fees, expenses, while accounts were frozen. At first I helped because I thought I loved him, but it never stopped. He needed more and more. I finally realized he was using me the same way he used you." "Welcome to the club," I said dryly. "We really should get jackets made. Maybe matching t-shirts?" She almost smiled. "I left him 3 weeks ago. He lost it. Called me every name imaginable. Said I was abandoning him when he needed me most. It was like seeing a completely different person. That wasn't a different person. That was who he always was. We just weren't looking closely enough." Vanessa was quiet. "I lost my job at the company I went to after here. They did background check, found out about the scandal. The NDA means I can't defend myself or explain my side. My reputation in this industry is destroyed." I felt a twinge of something. Not quite sympathy, but maybe understanding. We'd both been victims of Daniel's manipulation, even if Vanessa had also been complicit in hurting me. "I'm not trying to make you feel sorry for me," she continued. I made my choices. I'm living with consequences. I just wanted you to know you were right. About everything. Daniel wasn't worth it. The affair wasn't worth it. And I'm sorry I didn't see that before I helped hurt you. Okay, I said simply. She looked surprised. Okay, that's it? What do you want me to say? That I forgive you? That we're friends now? You slept with my husband. You contributed to one of the most painful periods of my life. An apology doesn't erase that. I know, she whispered. But, I continued, I also know Daniel is very good at manipulation, at making people believe what he wants them to believe. So while I'm not absolving you of responsibility, I understand you were caught in his web too. I stood, signaling the meeting was ending. I hope you rebuild your career and find happiness. Just do it somewhere far away from me and this company. Vanessa left, and I returned to projections but couldn't quite focus. Her visit had stirred up feelings I'd been trying to avoid. Not about Daniel, I was done with him, but about my own judgment, my own choices. I'd spent years thinking I was smart, capable, too intelligent to be fooled. Yet I'd missed all signs of Daniel's true character until they became impossible to ignore. That humbled me in a way no professional failure ever could. My phone rang. Detective Martinez. Ms. Anderson wanted to update you. Daniel Grant accepted a plea deal this morning. 15 years, with possibility of parole after 10. 15 years. He'd be 49 when released. His entire prime earning years gone. Reputation destroyed. Company in someone else's hands. How do you feel about that? The detective asked. Honestly, I don't feel much. I'm just glad it's over. That night, I went home to the apartment I'd moved into after leaving the place Daniel and I shared. Smaller, quieter, wholly mine. I poured wine and sat on the balcony, looking at city lights. My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. This is all your fault. I hope you're happy with yourself. You destroyed a good man. Daniel. Messaging from yet another number. Still refusing to accept responsibility. Still blaming me for his own crimes. I deleted it, blocked the number, made mental note to mention it to my attorney. Then I raised my wine glass in solitary toast. To good men everywhere, may they be nothing like Daniel Grant. And honestly, I meant every word. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in early December, 3 months after the board meeting that changed everything. I sat in conference room with my attorney while Daniel appeared via video from the correctional facility where he awaited transfer to federal prison. He looked terrible. Orange jumpsuit, unshaven, eyes hollow. This wasn't the confident man who'd once commanded boardrooms. This was someone who'd gambled everything and lost spectacularly. The judge reviewed settlement terms. Due to prenuptial agreement and documented infidelity and fraud, Daniel received nothing. 0 claim to marital assets, no spousal support, no equity in Grant Industries. Everything we'd built together reverted to me, appropriate since it had been built with my family's money and my legal work. Mr. Grant, do you understand these terms? The judge asked. Daniel stared at the camera. For a moment, our eyes met across video connection. I wondered what he saw. The wife he'd betrayed? The woman who'd exposed his crimes? Or just another person who'd stopped being useful? Yes, Your Honor, he said, voice flat. And Ms. Anderson? I understand and agree. Then this court grants dissolution of marriage between Daniel Grant and Laura Anderson, effective immediately. Just like that, it was over. 7 years together, erased with gavel strike. My attorney gathered papers while I sat processing finality. I was no longer anyone's wife, no longer half of a couple, just Laura, standing alone, exactly as I should have been all along. As we walked out, my attorney handed me a folder. One more thing you should see. Daniel's attorney tried to file this last week, but we had it dismissed. Thought you'd want to know he made the attempt. Inside was a motion claiming I'd manipulated him, planted evidence that the entire investigation was conspiracy orchestrated by me and Dad to steal his company. Accusations were absurd, contradicted by mountains of documentation and witness testimony. He actually thought this would work. Desperate people make desperate arguments. Daniel still hasn't accepted he did this to himself. He's more comfortable believing he's victim of elaborate scheme than acknowledging his own choices. I handed the folder back. Send it to prosecutors. Let them see exactly how much remorse he has. We parted at courthouse steps, and I walked back through cold December morning. Chicago was gearing up for holidays. Decorations appearing in windows, smell of roasted chestnuts from street vendors. The city felt festive, hopeful, alive. At the office, I found a surprise. Entire executive team had gathered in conference room with a cake reading, "Congratulations on your divorce," in icing. We thought this called for celebration, Marcus Thompson said, grinning. You're finally free of that jackass. I laughed, genuinely touched. This is either the most supportive or most inappropriate workplace gesture I've ever experienced. Why not both? Donna Fraser said, cutting cake. You deserve to celebrate moving on. As we ate and joked about terrible exes, I felt something shift. For months, I'd been operating in crisis mode, putting out fires, rebuilding systems, fighting battles. But now, with divorce finalized and company stabilizing, I could finally breathe. Speech, someone called. The CEO has to give a speech. I stood, improvising. When I discovered what Daniel had done, I thought my world was ending. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. My marriage, my trust, my sense of who I was. I paused, looking around at these people who'd become more than colleagues. But what I actually lost was the weight of living a lie. What I gained was chance to build something real. Something based on integrity instead of deception. I didn't just gain this company, I gained all of you. People who show up every day and do excellent work. People who believed in new vision and helped make it real. People who proved culture can change if enough people commit to changing it. I raised my water bottle in toast. So thank you for giving me a chance, for working with me instead of against me, for making Grant Industries into something Daniel never could have built, a company we're actually proud of. The applause was genuine, and I felt the truth of what I'd said. This wasn't just about revenge or taking down a corrupt CEO. It was about building something better, something worth protecting. That evening, I returned to my apartment and found a package waiting. Inside was a letter from Sarah Chen, the product developer who'd planned to leave. Dear Laura, I wanted to tell you something I haven't told anyone at work. 6 months ago, I interviewed at 3 different companies because I couldn't stand the environment anymore. I had offers, good offers, but I turned them all down because of what you're doing here. You gave me hope that tech doesn't have to be a boys' club. That competence matters more than who you know. That women can lead without becoming jerks to be taken seriously. I'm staying because you showed me it's possible to change things instead of just escaping them. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for being the kind of leader I want to become. I set the letter down, emotions swelling. This was why it mattered. Not satisfaction of Daniel's downfall. Not even vindication of being proven right. It was this, the chance to make a difference for people who needed someone to believe in. My phone buzzed with news alert. Former tech CEO Daniel Grant sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for fraud and embezzlement. I read the article detailing the sentencing hearing I hadn't attended. Prosecutor emphasized sophisticated fraud nature, betrayal of investors, damage to employees working in good faith. Daniel had made a statement claiming he was sorry, that he'd made mistakes, hoped to rebuild after serving time. Same empty words since the beginning. Article ended with prosecutor quote, "This case demonstrates no one is above the law, regardless of position or connections. We're grateful to whistleblowers who came forward, particularly Ms. Laura Anderson, whose courage made this prosecution possible." I closed the article and opened email instead. Work to do, company to run, life to build. And honestly, that was exactly how I wanted it. 6 months after the divorce, Grant Industries held its annual shareholder meeting. First under my leadership, first where Daniel's name wasn't mentioned except as cautionary tale about corporate governance importance. I stood before investors, employees, board members, presenting year-end results. Revenue up 17%. Employee satisfaction scores dramatically increased. 3 new products launched. Contracts with major clients who'd specifically cited our ethical leadership as deciding factor. When I unexpectedly became CEO, I said, many doubted whether we'd survive. Scandal, criminal charges, media attention, it seemed like too much negative press to overcome. But we didn't just survive, we thrived. Because we made a choice to be different, to build something valuing people over profits, integrity over shortcuts, transparency over deception. I clicked to next slide, showing employee demographic data. We've increased women in leadership by 30%, implemented pay equity audits, corrected disparities, created mentorship programs, and flexible work supporting everyone, not just those fitting narrow definitions of ideal employee. Donna Fraser sat in front, smiling. Beside her were 3 women promoted to director-level positions in past 6 months. Women whose talent had been overlooked under Daniel but flourished once given real opportunities. These changes weren't just morally right. They were smart business. Diverse teams perform better. Ethical companies attract better talent and clients. Integrity isn't liability. It's competitive advantage. Applause was enthusiastic. After formal presentation, investors approached with congratulations and questions about growth strategy. Several mentioned recommending their portfolio companies look to Grant Industries as model for cultural transformation. Dad found me during reception afterward. Your mother would be proud. She always said you had strength to do hard things. I don't think either of us imagined it would be quite this hard. I squeezed his hand. Thank you for believing in me, for not letting me give up when things got difficult. You never gave up, even when you had every reason. That's what makes you a real leader, Laura. Not the title, but the character. As reception wound down, I stepped onto office balcony for air. City stretched before me, full of possibility and potential. Somewhere in federal prison, Daniel was serving his sentence, probably still convinced he was victim of circumstances beyond his control. I didn't waste energy hating him anymore. He'd given me an unexpected gift, chance to discover who I was without him, without his lies, manipulation, constant redefinition of reality. I'd learned I was stronger than I thought, more capable than I'd believed, more resilient than anyone expected. My phone buzzed. Message from Jennifer Park, the accountant who'd first blown the whistle. Saw the shareholder report. Incredible work. Proud to have played a small part making this possible. I typed back, your part wasn't small. Wasn't. Thank you for having courage to speak up. A moment later, I learned from watching you. You showed all of us that telling truth matters, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I pocketed my phone and looked out at the city again. Sun was setting, painting sky in shades of gold and pink. Beautiful, hopeful, full of promise. Behind me, laughter from reception. My team, celebrating our success. People who trusted me, worked hard, believed in what we were building together. This was real. This mattered. I'd started this journey as a woman who'd lost everything. Wife betrayed, professional undermined, person questioning her own judgment. But I hadn't lost everything. I'd lost things that were never really mine. Marriage built on lies, partnership without equity, life requiring me to be smaller than I was. What I'd gained was immeasurable. Self-respect, professional fulfillment, knowledge that I could face the worst and come out stronger, community of people supporting each other, doing right by each other, proving business success and human decency weren't mutually exclusive. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. That sometimes the worst thing becomes catalyst for best transformation. That you are stronger than you think, more capable than you believe, worthy of more than you've settled for. I walked back inside to join my team, the woman I'd been a year ago, the one who'd discovered her husband's betrayal through Instagram photo. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone who'd turned pain into purpose, betrayal into breakthrough, victimhood into victory. Not because revenge was sweet, though I won't pretend there wasn't satisfaction in seeing justice served, but because I'd learned the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so successful, so meaningful, so impactful, that the person who tried to diminish you becomes irrelevant. Daniel had tried to make me feel small, unworthy, less than. Instead, he'd given me motivation to become more confident, more capable, more myself than I'd ever been while trying to fit into his vision. As I rejoined the celebration, Donna raised her glass. To Laura, who taught us all that sometimes the best thing that can happen to a company is losing the wrong leader and finding the right one. I raised my glass in return, to all of us, for having courage to believe better is possible and determination to make it real. We drank to that. To new beginnings, to hard-won wisdom, to strength that comes from surviving the worst and choosing to build something better from rubble. My husband insisted I not attend his company gala. Hours later, I walked in as new CEO, flanked by entire board, and watched his face drain of all color. He'd wanted me excluded, diminished, forgotten. Instead, I showed him exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman who knows her worth. The company flourished under my leadership. Women who'd been silenced found their voices. Culture of fear transformed into culture of excellence. And me? I discovered I didn't need a husband to validate my existence or define my success. I needed only myself, my integrity and courage to stand up for what was right. Even when, especially when, it cost me everything I thought I wanted. Because sometimes losing everything is the beginning of finding yourself. And there's no revenge sweeter than that.